Hi everyone, this is Kimberly Ray with Marine Conservation Network. And we're here today with Sean. He is the founder of the Pelagic Shark Research Foundation in Santa Cruz, California. And welcome, Sean. Thank you for joining us today. I'm glad you made it.
Thank you for the invite.
Well, we're here today. We're going to be talking about sharks and how they're important to the ecosystems in the ocean, how they're important to us, and what's going on with them in the current situation and in the near future. So, Sean, before we get started with the interview, I want to remind everybody, first of all, to go to our YouTube channel and subscribe, click that like button and that bell, and you'll get more interviews like this that you'll see be coming live to you more often on a regular basis. So let me start by asking, first of all, your name implies what type of sharks you're doing, pelagic sharks, correct?
No. With some detail there, we founded in 1990, right? When gill netting, mechanized long lining, and the finning fishery was way out on the horizon. And so we chose the pelagic sharks, which are still our primary concern, in order to grapple with the oncoming issues with overfishing.
And overfishing
of sharks specifically as well. We strategize that, otters, dolphins, well, that's pretty easy. If you can go down to the heavy end of it with animals like sharks, which aren't necessarily popular, or animals that are obscure like, mola molas, or, other animals that are caught up in industrialized, mechanized high seas fleets, if you could address that, the rest of it would be relatively easier to address. And no one at that time was addressing shark conservation issues. My organization, the Pelagic Shark Research Foundation, PSRF, founded in 1990, is literally the world's first shark-specific conservation, research, and education advocacy group ever established.
What started you along this path for your organization to where you felt the need that this needed to be done?
Basically I come from a commercial fishing background, and fishing was just, second nature. I was doing, albacore trips when I was a 10-year-old. And so coming from that background, I had some insights and practical applied experiential qualities that were lacking from the discussion, from the planning, for the regulation management, etc. And so that was kind of the motivation behind the whole type of thing. So we established to deal with primarily fisheries issues, and that quickly also, due to any other alternate organization working on it, shark archery contests, shark fishing contests, where the objective is to catch and kill the best example of that species. And it's not for food or anything like that.
Right.
And while arguing against overfishing and finning, there's static, and I've interfaced quite a bit with Taiwanese and Japanese commercial fishermen. They're typically the first ones to read the scientific literature.
Right, exactly.
This overlaps with tuna fisheries, etc. And they understand the logic of it, but their response is like, well, you guys are out there targeting the old growth females, the big fat old reproductive important specimens for fun, and you're going to lecture me about feeding. We're
Right.
Taiwan, Japan, they're islands, they have to kind of fish, right? It's not an easy argument when you're dealing with on the practical side of it. You can post memes about
Right.
So whatever you want,
What kind of changes have you seen from when you used to be a commercial fisherman and you were doing it on that side of the coin to where you are now? What kind of changes have you seen, good or bad, with the shark population and what's happening with the sharks out there?
So I come from the hook and line fishery. So to me, in the late 80s and early 90s, it was quite apparent to me that the mechanized long lining and the monofilament gill nets and the sidebar, main attraction, which was shark finning at that time. As a hook and line fisherman, that was a conflict of interest.
Okay.
And same with swordfish boats and stuff like that. You used to have to, hit those with harpoons or, hook and line. It's a lot more difficult taking fewer animals. With a gill net, you can take, 100% more
right.
in 50% of the time. and then all the bycatch and stuff. So that was kind of the initial trigger and realization. I was out albacore fishing when, you know, a gillnet boat had a bunch of dolphins that they're hauling up on board, and basically just chopping the beaks and the tails off to, you know, quickly get them out of their net and throw them overboard. You can hear them clicking and squeaking and stuff. And as a teenager, that was like, oh, I can't
Right.
sleep.
Yeah.
And then the old timers are all, you know, bitching and complaining about, you know, there's big factories. Look at that thing. It's a battleship. You know, we're out here trying to compete with it. And you know, so I mean, a lot of differences. Since then, you know, finning as a market and industry and trade is banned in California since 2012. California Senate Bill 376. White sharks are protected in California and in Monterey Bay, which is important real estate. Very difficult to get that to happen. Back in, again, in the mid 90s, California Senate Bill made that, you know, possible. And so there's been a lot of change, you know, but I'm talking about 3 decades of effort. We just had a big, huge bust again every year for the last like 4 years. There have been big shark finning busts, mostly located just coincidentally, I suppose, out in Florida, with tentacles reaching out here, causing meat problems, personal, you know, threats. So, you know, people really don't know. It's the tip of the iceberg.
On that note, let's explain to everybody, why are sharks so important to the ecosystem?
You know, there's hundreds of species of sharks, between 400 and 500 species, depending which taxonomist you talk to, and the latest genomic information as well. The average shark isn't menacing or glamorous. You know, it's not going to bite you. So you have this, you know, a lineup of, you know, 400 or 500 different species, and you've only got, you know, several that are really kind of capable, let alone inclined to come up and bite you. They definitely can and will. So as well, it's a polarized discussion between sharks are misunderstood, peaceful, you know, creatures. No.
Right, but they play a big part of the
prehistoric
ecosystem,
super predator. And neither of those are accurate. Yeah, I mean, you know, do you want to have a vibrant ecosystem or not? I don't understand the oh, we can do without them. Well, maybe you can in Wisconsin. You know, I don't know what, you know, people like in Australia, oh, there's sharks out there, they bit another swimmer. Well, swim somewhere else. I mean, how many years in a row do you have to have these events happen and then, you know, blame the shark behavior? Not every shark is an apex predator, right?
Right, that's true too.
And stuff. So, I mean, in reality, you can't really fall back too far onto the, oh, we need them to, you know, we need them because they're there. You know, why do we need trees? You know, if we could just move all these trees, we'd have so much more room for whatever. I mean, you can make that argument and compound it with all kinds of issues. The fact is, we do have sharks. They're important to the ecosystem just because it's part of the planet. You shouldn't really have to, you know, rationalize that much.
Right, but the way that you get people involved is by letting them know, you know, this is why it's important. People need a reasoning. You can't, because a lot of people don't go with blind faith. I would
explore other tactics. I would explore other tactics, including the one that we've been hearing for 40 years, and a different rationale.
Well, you're right, exactly. Since humans have been on this earth, 90% of animals that have gone extinct have been because of human impact, whether it's pollution, whether it's overhunting or overfishing, or just going out there and getting things.
Deforestation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
we live in an age where livestock outnumbers wild animals.
Right.
So you say, you know, livestock outnumbers wildlife. And that's, you know, another, you know, symptom
because
of what it is. There's more people now than ever.
What advice would you give to people that are interested into making a difference on protecting the shark species and being more respectful of them? What advice would you give them if they wondered, okay, what can I do? I'm only one person.
Well, if you're an advocate or an activist, you know, just a public-private citizen, and you're interested in conservation, one of the best things you can do is pick up the phone and call that agency office, or pen a letter, write them a letter requesting an answer, right? People are really into these, you know, kind of name brand petitions and stuff. It makes it really convenient for the agency or office to basically deal with a flood of what would be 10,000 letters and phone calls. I don't see it as a tactical advantage. And you know, they get Okay, there's another petition. How many petitions have we seen? How many more do we need?
Right,
If you really
right.
want to get an agency office's attention, ring their phone all day long. Not you, like, harassing them, but, if you could muster a group of people
Right.
calling in independently, all of a sudden that office is busy. Another call about this, another call about that. No, can't they just send it in a petition? No, that's not the idea. We're not trying to make it easy for the agency fixtures whose job is, for example, I think a big problem with conservation is that that most of the specialists involved are actually paid by fisheries.
True.
Okay, fisheries biology isn't a bad field, right? We need that. That's essential, right?
Right.
And there's just 99% of it's important and good and valid, right? But you have these key fixtures in the U.S. saying no, finning's okay, but under the table they're saying this and they're doing this and they're making
Right.
deals and they're winking and nodding and they're approving and reviewing all the new scientific papers, and it's a roadblock. And it's obvious, right? So in addition to fisheries biologists, we need environmental studies, marine science
Okay.
researchers that aren't tied to fisheries.
Talk to us about the basking sharks. You wanted to mention the basking sharks and what their plight is and how they're doing and everything. What's going on with the basking sharks right now?
Well, they are a mysterious, shark. The world's second largest known shark. They're
Right.
not famous for biting off legs or overturning boats too much. It's
Basking sharks are
mostly
pretty
related to
harmless.
fisheries. They're indifferent to humans. They attract a lot of attention just because they're big and they're service. They used to be counted, for example, in the hundreds and even thousands just here within Monterey Bay. All right. They were deemed a hazard to navigation and commerce due to their conflict of interest with the booming and busting sardine fishery of the time. In Canada, same thing, because it was the same population moving up and down the coast. They range all the way down to South America, all the way up to British Columbia north of there. And because of their abundance and their sizes, they're just in the way of the hugely increasing purse seine nets and the weirs and all the stuff. British Columbia had such a wealth of seafood that no one even wanted to bother fishing for the basking sharks.
Aren't
In
they
Monterey
slow?
Bay, they both culled them out and overfished them. They used them for fertilizer in the Salinas Valley. There
Right.
was actually a recreational harpoon fishery targeting basking sharks out of Monterey, the Del Monte Hotel, Monterey Bay Yacht Club. Awesome establishments nowadays. Back then, it was really cool to go out in a dory and harpoon these big sharks, kill them for fun. They would be used in the valley as fertilizer. Liver oils were taken. The fins were used.
Right.
Back then, that's the same time when soup fin sharks became popular on the
Shark fin
markets.
soup, yes.
Yeah, so by the mid 1950s, they were commercially extinct. The fishery closed because you couldn't find them or support a fishery. When the consumer actually takes initiative, and I think they already have actually. I mean, people on social media say, "Oh, this is junk post. I've seen this again." A lot of the same stuff that I would complain about. I think there's an understanding that that's the case, but
Right.
it's just an advertising circuit, and they don't care.
Yeah,
Literally, what
they
are
get
you
caught
going to
in it.
do?
Exactly.
Make your own news.
Right.
Get
Well,
your own.
that's what
news
we're here
station.
to do. That's what we're here to do. Well, our time is almost up, but I want to ask you one last thing. I want to talk to you about the great whites for two reasons. One, because we now have a sign that was posted up this last weekend here at Santa Barbara and Ledbetter Beach of a shark sighting, which means the great whites are starting to come through, the juveniles, and they put those out. But I also want to talk to you about defending the great white shark. You had a whole thing going on with that you defended protecting them. So I want to talk about those two subjects right now, on you defending the great whites and what's really going on with the great whites right here on Ledbetter Beach.
The people of California want to protect great white sharks, same reason we want to protect killer whales and
Right.
sea turtles, because we see them as an important and valuable feature of the natural environment, and we don't care about the fishing concerns. That's
Well,
a conflict of interest, in fact. So white sharks are protected in California. Basking sharks are not yet protected, and that's our long-term goal. Get basking sharks protected. identified and recognized as issue familiarity and situational awareness by the public, and as well protect white shark protected status. Now, speeding forward really quickly, beginning in the late 90s, white shark pups began to move north gradually into the Southern California bight, where they became in the past decade, relatively common. In the past several years, beginning in 2014, we saw the first ever juvenile yearling white shark in Monterey Bay in living history. There are records in the 30s and the 50s. Right. So the currents have shifted around over time. And again, we started to have an influx of juvenile white sharks in Monterey Bay in keeping with the currents. It's not a population expansion. There's a reciprocal absence down in the southern Baja range of their former range, right? So as the currents change, they will move in keeping with that, and the provision of food, etc. So that's not new. But what's important is it's being depicted often as the white shark population is exploding. It's a comeback, etc. And it's not true.
The sharks that show up here, is it true that they're coming from the Ventura?
They're coming from all the way down to San Diego, and some of these sharks that we're seeing up here are coming from, further south than that. A lot of the sharks that we're seeing are tagged by Chris Lowe's lab, for example. There are some tags remaining from the Stanford project, which I was involved with for many years. And basically, there's been a lot of work done off the West Coast, Eastern Pacific. The point is that this isn't wall-to-wall sharks that we don't know of. In fact, it's the same sharks being seen up and down the coast. Right. And you can identify them by their tags and by other marks. Some are missing parts of their fins and missing an eye. Sadly, in the last 2-3 years, we've had an increased number of entanglements on sharks. I disentangled 3 white sharks here in Monterey Bay last year. Yep, fishing line mostly. A few animals, at least 3 that I've seen compelling evidence for, had ropes on them. We weren't able to find all of them, but there's footage of them. We got rope off of one, and quite a bit of fishing line off of others. That is in part due to the sharks getting into mischief. You're trying to catch a fish, the shark comes up, eats your fish, becomes entangled, etc. We have a serious problem with poaching, deliberate poaching. Guys go, oh yeah, I'm fishing for bat rays. They put a big steel cable hook. They'll actually put a bat ray on the hook. We lose a lot of sharks every year from poaching. We busted a poacher in 2019.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
There's been several white sharks wash up dead in California, ranging from boat collision. One was shot with a rifle. We were able to collect that specimen. Mark Akihiro at Fish and Wildlife Department did all the forensics, and with those enforcement and lab personnel, we're able to track it to the rifle but make a bust. Sport guys often they thought it was a mako. They just lie through their teeth. There's just
Well, do you think it's because a lot of them are uneducated?
Yeah, and just willful too. You have guys that know better will say, "Oh no, we released it unharmed." Pouring blood out of its gills, a hook in its neck. Who's going to let an animal loose in that condition and go, "No, it was released unharmed"? It's a platitude that they parrot out because they enjoy it. It's fun. Yeah. The thing is like shark fishing is easiest. It's kind of a dumb guy sport, right? The traditional problem is getting a shark from, preventing a shark from taking your fish or taking your bait while you're trying to fish for other sharks or other fish. Other fish. Shark fishing is more relatively new. Any knuckle dragger can bait a hook, throw it out there. The shark's the easiest thing to catch. That's true. If you look at the beach fishing in Florida, you have 3-4 guys hanging off a fishing rod, a 200-300 pound test. That's not sport fishing. Right. That's not angling. That's not the art of angling. Why don't you just get a tow truck, and haul it up on the beach that way? True. What sport are you referring to? That's I say caveman for lack of a better. It's modern human. Right. I'm all for hunting and fishing and subsistence. I'm no vegan. People need to eat. And it's a huge, tremendous waste of a lot of resources that, we're responsible and obligated to look after for that long-term perspective.
It needs to be done responsibly.
And we got people out here just killing stuff for fun. insisting ignorantly that, oh, that, it's released unharmed. That's baloney. Use barbless hooks. It's not just about the circle. Use a barbless hook. The barb does all most of the damage as well. So you guys out there catching and releasing sharks, if you're fishing in an area where you chronically catch sharks by accident, use a barbless hook. Go somewhere else where you don't catch the sharks, right? The fact is, they're not honest. They like to catch the sharks.
Right. Well, that's why we're here, and that's why we wanted to work with you and have you on today, is to get some of the information out to what's really happening. And you've opened the door for future interviews that we're going to have you on, because there's so much that I know you need to help everybody understand what's going on. And I want to go ahead. Our time is up for this interview today, but we are going to have you back on. And I really appreciate you taking time out of the day for this. This has been fantastic. And you've exposed a lot of information that I didn't even know. And I'm out there quite a bit. So this has been fantastic.
I know you are. It's common. I've been doing this for 30 years. Most people that were doing it weren't doing it when I started, and many have retired.
I would love to say that I'm doing it for 30 years. I want to get to that point where I'm saying I've done this for 30 years, just like you. But we'll get there. We're just starting, we're still babies, but we're getting there. But
this is valuable. I mean, this has a lot of potential.
It's very valuable.
Right now, and I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for coming on today. I really appreciate this. We are going to set up other interviews. And everybody, go on Sean's website. It's the Pelagic Shark Research. Is that right? Pelagic Shark Research Foundation. Is that correct? Did I say it right?
Yeah, that's kind of a monument. It's fossilized right now. The webpage at pelagic.org. Our email and all that stuff is current. Go to Facebook, Pelagic Shark Research Foundation, and YouTube under my name, Sean Van Someren.
Okay.
There's 2 pages, but the one with all the newer shark videos and stuff like that is the where to go. There's a lot of news reports going back, for the past several years since we transitioned off the web page itself.
Right. So that'll be great. And they can all go to your pages, your Facebook page, your YouTube page, your website. You guys can also go to our page, Marine Conservation Network. We have a YouTube channel. We're on all social media, Facebook especially. Contact us if you have any questions for Sean. Sean, thank you again for joining us today. And we're going to be in touch. We're going to continue this.
Thank you, Kimberly. Good work.
Thanks a lot. And remember, guys, together we can make oceans a difference. Talk to you later. Bye.